We're in chapter 11, and we got to page 372 on Monday, talking about semantic memory, words and concepts. And today we're talking about episodic memory. It's on page 372. I guess I should turn over there. Episodic memory. Episodes in your life. Events in your life. Scripts. Mental representations of the way things happened in the past. Can any of you think, since we're talking about 7 to 11-year-olds, can any of you recall an episode in your life when you were between 7 and 11? So tell us about it. I used to ride a bicycle to school because it was, what, 1, 2, 3, about 3.5 miles from my house to school. So I would ride a bicycle. And one of the reasons I liked to ride my bicycle was because at recess and lunchtime, all the guys who rode bicycles would have races around the school building. And what would happen when the little first graders would come out of the building to go outside to play for recess, and we were all racing around the building. 6 of us on bicycles going as fast as we could. We all stopped racing and let all the little kids walk to the swing set. No, we just ran right over those little chippers and got in trouble for it. But this is our racetrack, we told the teacher, and somehow she didn't understand. And we got in trouble. So we got in trouble again, we got in trouble again. We were just always getting in trouble. You remember an episode from 7 to 11-year-olds? Any of you remember some episodes? What kind of memories do you have?
So we had a big long swing set at school, like a row of them, like probably a good 8 of them, and kids would get on that, and then we would try to run through them.
While they were swinging back and forth?
Like, you know what I mean? Like dodging it.
Yeah.
And that didn't last very long, but...
Till somebody got hurt?
Yeah.
What a marvelous idea.
Right.
Till somebody got smacked by someone swinging. Anybody else have an episode you remember? You don't want to talk about your episodes from childhood?
Me and my friends were playing in the backyard, and I don't know if I was quite 7. I was probably around that age. And we were playing in the backyard. My dog was out there, and so my friend was throwing a bone back and forth to my dog, and I guess she didn't see it, and the bone, it was like one of those hard bones, like not like a chew bone, but like one of those hard ones. She hit me right in the head with it.
You?
Yep. On accident. She was like playing fetch with my dog, and I guess I got in the way, and
oh man,
hit me right in the head. I remember I was really sad, and I went inside, and my mom put on like a Disney movie or something while I had this ice pack on my head.
Ouch. Anybody else have an episode? You don't remember? How come the girls are reluctant to share their episodes from childhood, guys? We don't have any hesitation, do we?
Because
We lived exciting lives. Scary things happened to us. It's like, well, no, I don't remember anything scary. I just remember sitting in my room and daydreaming about me and my doll growing up to be a princess somewhere. Is that the kind of episodes you have? What, Hannah?
I was thinking of when my older brother and I were kind of mean to our little sister.
Oh, no.
And so we would always make, I don't know why we thought it was fun, but we would stack pillows in between us and like make a tower of my brother, pillow, me, pillow, and then my youngest sister was always at the bottom of the stack.
Oh, no.
So that's what I remember.
Did you get in trouble for it?
Couple times we did, but not all the time because my sister just wanted to play with us.
Because she wanted to play with you guys, and she would endure any kind of pain just to be able to play with you. And you and your depravity, if you're wondering why you did that, Hannah, and you and your depravity would just take advantage of the little sibling. Anybody else remember a childhood episode?
We used to play Beast of the Purple Room by we had like a little dormer thing, like you know where the window jets out, so like that was based and my brother would like chase us all around in the purple room in our house.
And you had bases?
Yeah.
And you played what?
We called it Beast of the Purple Room.
And it was just like a game you played?
Yeah.
And enjoyed it immensely?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have an episode? You can't think of one? Or you don't want to share it?
I remember working on the ranch with my dad and helping him with a C-section. And I was really young, and my sister was a lot older than me, but she couldn't help because it was making her sick. But that's, yeah.
What kind of animal?
Cow.
Helping a cow have a baby?
That's pretty.
Hey, Hannah, when I was in Future Farmers of America in high school, our ag teacher took us out to a farm where they did a C-section on a pig. And I'm watching, and I'm going, whoa! And then about that time, everything starts turning white. Do all of you know what happens when everything starts turning bright white? You better sit down or you're going to fall down because you're on the verge of fainting. I couldn't believe it that I almost fainted watching that. Crazy. Anybody else have an episode? Who hasn't shared one yet? I
think so. We had a big earthquake in Japan, and I was afraid of, every day I was afraid of an earthquake, so I always pray about, please God help us.
Because you were just afraid of the danger?
Yeah.
So there's only one person left to share an episode.
I remember one time when we lived in Florida during one of the really bad hurricanes that went through, and my brother and I were really scared, so we took our sister's automatic rocker and put blankets and pillows over it and hid underneath it until the storm was over.
Until the hurricane was over? I've never been through a hurricane. What does it sound like?
It's just really scary.
It's a really scary noise?
Yeah.
Have any of the rest of you been through a hurricane? Apparently it's pretty scary stuff. Okay, the people online, I'll have to, when I get home, set up a little discussion page where you can share an episode from your life. And hopefully, I think you'll be able to hear all of them that were shared today in class. Episodic memory, events in life, mental representations of the way things typically occur. It says these scripts on page 372 help children predict what will happen in the future. In other words, based on these episodic memories, we can kind of make predictions about what's going to happen down the road. Like, Micah, if you see a row of 8 swings and people swinging back and forth, and somebody suggested that, let's run through there and dodge those people, you would say, no, when I was younger, we did that and some people got hurt. Bad idea. I mean, that's where we can use these episodic memories to predict what's coming in the future. In reconstructive memory, you patch together what probably happened based on stored bits of relevant information and external cues. Now, here's what happens, okay? Now, you tell me what you think's going on. My grown daughters tell stories about things that happened when they were younger, and I don't remember it happening like that. Now, do I have a better picture in my head of what happened when they were younger? Or am I patching together what probably happened based on my stored bits of information? Or are they patching together what probably happened on their bits of stored information? Or are all of us doing that? Do both children and adults do that kind of thing? And the answer is yes. That's why when people go to court and they have people come who were witnesses to the accident, I mean, if all of us heard a big crash, we would run to the window and look outside to see what happened. And none of us really saw what happened. We just heard the crash. But when we looked out there, we reconstructed in our minds what probably happened, and then are put on the stand in a courtroom to determine who was at fault. And if when you looked out in the parking lot, you saw a young college student and an old guy all slumped over, standing out there talking to each other with their cars crashed into one another, who would you assume was probably at fault? The old guy who wasn't paying attention, or the young college student who wasn't paying attention?
I think our minds would automatically say that it was the younger guy because they tend to be more reckless.
You would?
Mm-hmm.
You've never seen old geezers drive cars?
I have, but they're usually more cautious.
They are?
Sometimes.
Would all of you testify that way? No, you wouldn't, Lydia?
Well, my grandpa, he isn't supposed to be driving, but he drives till his heart can go out at any time.
Okay, now do you see what's happened? See? She has a grandfather who shouldn't be driving, but he won't give up his license, he won't quit. So she just knows, based on that memory, that old people are probably the ones who are at fault when there's a wreck. But no, young people are just more careless when they drive. Not college-age young people. Oh, yes. So many things on their mind. So do you see how there can be different testimony in the courtroom just because we don't even realize we're doing it. We're not remembering what we actually saw. We didn't see anything. We reconstruct based on our past experience, based on stored bits of relevant information and external cues. Page 373 talks about autobiographical memories. Those are memories that have to do with your life story. See, I had to be younger than 7 when this happened because I'm a tall person, but I grew up on a wheat farm in Oklahoma, and one year we had a bumper crop of wheat where it was really tall, and the wheat was taller than I was tall, and for some reason I went out into the wheat field just walking around like I was walking through a forest. But when I got out there, I couldn't see anything, so I didn't know where I was, so I didn't know which direction to go to get out of the field. And I started, now see, I think I started saying, help! But did I really do that? I must have, because our little dog came barking when he heard my voice and running out into the field, and somehow he picked up on the fact that I was kind of lost, and I followed him out of the wheat field back to the house. Oh. Now, you understand? That would make a good Little House on the Prairie story, wouldn't it? One of those little girls gets lost out in the field somewhere, and do they have a pet dog? Why didn't Little House on the Prairie have a pet dog? I'm thinking everybody had a pet dog back then, didn't they? To chase away wild animals. That poor Little House on the Prairie people. They have all these stories about wolves. You remember the one about the wolf chasing Paul with the rabbits, and he threw the rabbits away and went on home, and the wolves got the rabbits and apparently ate them, and then followed him home and made circles around his house all night? There are no wolves in real life who, after they eat the rabbits that you dropped, will follow you home and make circles around your house. Wolves don't like the smell of people. They're as afraid of us as we are of them. But that wouldn't make for a good episode for Little House on the Prairie, so they changed it. So now all these people are afraid of wolves because of Little House on the Prairie. Autobiographical memories have a high level of personal significance and form the core of a child's life story. So, have you ever stopped to reflect on your life story? What life was like when you were born? I mean, remember I talked about I was born before television and internet, and we didn't have that at our house when I was probably 7 to 11. I don't think we had a TV till I got to high school. I mean, they might have come out then, but we didn't have one. So I have all of these memories about life, my life, autobiographical, and they form the core of kind of who I am as a person. So you can kind of tell something about your personal representation of who you are as a person just by sitting down and reminiscing over some of your childhood experiences. So page 377 to 379 talks about experts and novices. Okay, do you know the difference between an expert and a novice? Okay, here are two people in a basketball in a gymnasium standing at the free throw line at each end of the gym, and they're shooting free throws. So each of them shoots 10 free throws. Out of the 10, how many do you think the novice probably had go through the basket? Pick a number between 1 and 10. 0 and 10. The novice had none of them go through the basket? Wouldn't they at least get 1 out of 10 that would go through the basket?
I'll say 3.
What?
3.
You'll say 3. What would the rest of you say? What would make a person a novice? 3 or 2 or 1? 3 or less? What would make a person an expert? 8. 8 out of 10 free throws went through the hoop. And if it was 7, you were not an expert? Or you were an expert who wasn't concentrating? Can any of you stand at a free throw line and shoot 10 free throws and make 8 of them? Hannah can. Anybody else? Oh, man. Anybody else? What's it feel like to be an expert at free throw shooting? How does it feel to be an expert?
So good.
Are you an expert too, Micah?
Not with that, no.
But with something else?
Maybe.
With what?
Maybe.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, we don't want to talk about areas of expertise because we're going to be humble Christians who just won't be braggadocious about things. But if you have some expertise, wouldn't it be dishonest not to admit it?
True.
If you can sit down at a keyboard and type fast enough to where your thoughts can go straight to the screen, what would you call that? Would I call that an expert keyboardist? How many can do that? 1, 2, 3. Well, the rest of them just need to go on the internet and find a little keyboarding program and practice working on your skills. So that's a level of expertise, where you're an expert rather than a novice. So how do you girls feel about being experts at free throws? Is it a good feeling? I mean, just thinking about it makes them smile. It's a good feeling to develop some expertise. It's like God gave us this capacity to practice things and keep doing it over and over and over till we develop a level of expertise. And it's a good feeling. It's a sense of accomplishment. And probably what we ought to do is help everybody. Now, this is 7 to 11-year-olds. We probably ought to be finding areas to help 7 to 11-year-olds develop some areas of expertise. Just find something they can do and that they can do very well, and just help them develop that level of expertise. Because once you develop a level of expertise at one thing, then you say, I'd like to do that at something else. Girls, you might appreciate this, you basketball players. Our daughter was a tall, big girl in high school. So they had her play center, where she would back and forth across the lane, and if they threw the ball to her, all she had to do was pivot, and she was tall enough where she could just pivot and throw it up. But all the people trying to stop her from shooting bothered her. And I said to her, listen, girl, here's the way girls basketball works. If you just pivot and throw the ball to the basket, it doesn't matter where it goes. 9 times out of 10, the referee will blow the whistle and call a foul on somebody. Right? Mm-hmm. And then everybody has to stand back, and you get to go to the free throw line, and you get 2 shots. So now if you'll just practice shooting free throws, then every time they pass you the ball in the lane, pivot and throw it up. And they'll blow the whistle and make everybody stand back, and you get to stand at the free throw line and make 2 points. The same as if you'd have made the basket. And she did it. And what ended up happening was her name was on the chart, at the athletic chart at school, as having the most points scored in a season with free throws.
Oh, wow.
Because she got so good at making her free throws. And they would foul her, or at least even if they didn't, someone would be called for a foul. And she developed this area of expertise. And I'm thinking we ought to probably say to everybody, let's help people find an area where they can develop some expertise, and then help them become experts at it. And then we're not going to be braggadocious about it, but we're just going to say, yeah, I've practiced this long enough to develop some expertise. I'm no longer a novice at this. And usually the novice will say, I'm just not very good at that. And I'm saying, well, if you practice more, you'll get better. And I don't know if you know this or not, but, well, when I came to Calvary, PE class, for some reason, this was years ago, when they wanted in PE class, they made us play volleyball, play badminton, play basketball, play golf, go bowling. They had us doing every kind of possible sport. I think the idea was, if everybody learns the basics of every kind recreational activity, then when they become adults, they'll pick one they like and work at it and develop some level of expertise. And probably the one I took to the most was golf, because I liked just all you had to do to hit a golf ball. I mean, if you're going to shoot a basket, you stand at the line, you stand on your toes, right? And you hold the basketball a certain way, and there's a technique for doing that. For hitting a golf ball, I think the checklist of stuff you have to do to hit the golf ball just right is like 10 or 12 things long. And if you get all 12 of them lined up at the same time and you hit the golf ball, when the golf ball takes off, it goes up and then it starts to go higher and it just keeps going and going and going. And you're standing there at the tee, I think is what it's called, where you hit it, and you're looking, and all of a sudden your ball is on the green about 5 feet from the cup. And you go, whoa! Now, an expert would do that over and over again. A novice like me would get one of those about every 3 times he went golfing. But I enjoyed it enough to where I was willing to keep working at it, to where every now and then I would get to taste what experts did all the time. So just keep figuring out ways to develop some expertise at something. I just like to keep learning all the time. So here I am, an old guy that the doctor says I shouldn't be playing basketball or sports with my grandsons anymore. So I find something else to do to develop an area of expertise. And believe it or not, I've found out that doing genealogical research on ancestry.com is very interesting to me, to the point to where I've developed a level of expertise where total strangers will send me a message and say, hey, I've looked at some of the work you've done and I'm having trouble finding this family connection. Can you help me? And I don't even know the people. I'll just click on it and start looking around and find some connections and send them to them and tell them, what do you think of this? And they go, whoa, how did you find that information? Oh, and I'm going, well, I've just been doing this a long time. So I think really to develop a level of expertise in something, you just practice, practice, practice. In fact, it says developing expertise includes lots of practice and some motivational factors, such as interest and dedication, and a general aptitude for it also helps. But it's not as important as lots of practice and being motivated. I'm a novice at doing crossword puzzles because I don't practice it much because I'm not motivated. But sudokus and sudokus, the number puzzles, oh, I love those. I do about 2 or 3 of them a day, and I have really developed some expertise at working those kinds of puzzles. So you say, okay, I'm going to have to practice a lot, but some things I'm not going to care for. So I'm not going to practice it that much. I mean, do all of you like homemade bread? So who's an expert at making homemade bread in this room? Do any of you have grandparents who are experts? So what do you think they've done? Practice, practice, practice. Well, all of my grandparents who made all the delicious homemade bread are gone. And finally, I was wanting homemade bread so much, I decided to try to make some myself. I'm a novice, and it did not turn out very well. And I haven't made bread since. Why? Because I'm not motivated that much. If I want some homemade bread, or I'll probably go to a bakery somewhere and buy some the next time I get hungry for it. Although, if I find some rolls that they sell at the store that come close to tasting as good as what my grandmother made, I'll just go pay the extra price and buy them. I think the best ones I've found so far, what are those Hawaiian rolls? Have you tasted those? Those are good rolls. The problem is that they put something in them to make them last way too long. I mean, if you can keep them in your refrigerator without them getting little mold on them for that long, there must be a lot of preservatives in them. So check it out. Page 380 talks about simple forms of rehearsal, where you just rehearse something over and over and over again. Organization is also common. Getting organized for these 7 to 11-year-olds, doing the same thing again and again and again, helping them get organized. Elaboration occurs when they start linking what they're learning to other information. It's like they start to elaborate on it. If I can work a Sudoku, maybe I could work a Sumoku. You go, what's the difference? Well, get on the internet and Google Sudoku and then Google Sumoku and see what the difference is. You go, oh, I'm not trying these Sumokus. Well, you might if you do Sudokus long enough to where it gets to be routine. Then you say, let's up it a little bit and try something a little more complicated. Page 385 talks again about semantics, what words mean. Let's see. What did you guys say about the weather?
Sad.
Sad. And I said I thought it felt warm when I was outside this morning. And I was the only one in here that felt that way about it. So what do words mean? And I've never heard of weather being sad. No, you said, how does it make you feel? I've never heard of, I can't think of weather ever making me feel sad. Icy streets and icy parking lots. Have you ever slipped on one where your feet, where the last thing you remember seeing was your feet were in front of your face? And you knew that what was coming next was severe pain. Now that makes me feel sad. When I think about the episodes when I saw my feet up that high and I knew I was going to go crashing down on an iced over sidewalk. But I don't blame that on the ice. Oh, I'm so thankful that somebody over in the administration building sent out an email when it started icing over and told us all to walk like a penguin. Walk like a penguin. That way you'll fall down less often. Because if you just go whipping down on the ice like normal, what's going to happen? Zip, your feet are going to go flying up in the air and you're going to come crashing down. Words, 2-year-olds have 200 of them, 6-year-olds have 10,000, 10-year-olds have 40,000, and high schoolers have 80,000. Did you know you have you probably have close to 100,000 words? You go, what? You probably have 100,000 words that you're able to use here in college. Page 386 talks about metalinguistics. What is metalinguistics? It's your knowledge about language itself and one's use of language. One part of metalinguistics is that a single word can have multiple meanings. Right? A single word can have multiple meanings. So, rub your fingers across the table and describe how it feels. Pick a single word to describe how that feels. Everybody have a single word in mind? On the count of 3, say your word. 1, 2, 3.
Smooth.
What?
I think we all said smooth.
Yeah.
Did you? What?
Smooth.
Smooth?
Smooth.
Smooth.
Smooth. Smooth.
We're all using the same word? Okay, run your fingers across the back of your hand. Run your fingers across the back of your hand. You got one word for that one? On the count of 3, say the word. 1, 2, 3.
Dry.
Okay.
So dry.
Dry.
Smooth.
Smooth.
Soft.
Soft. Soft.
Soft.
Soft.
Dry.
Dry. Smooth. There. Now we found something that we're not all using the same word for. A single word can have multiple meanings. Soft. See, somebody said they touched the back of their hand and it felt soft. Now watch what's going on in my head. Okay, all of you touch the back of your hand and think soft. And I'm going, no. What do I have in my life that's soft? A pillow. I have a soft pillow. I have a soft blanket. I have a soft chair at home. I have a soft seat in my car. But Micah, Logan, are you saying soft just doesn't work for this? Well, maybe you should touch the back of one of the girls' hands, and maybe you would think soft. They say, "Don't be touching my hand. I'm not going to be one of your experiments." It could be that there's just some dynamic going on there, either in our minds or when we touch the back of our hands, that the word soft just doesn't fit. But, guys, just make a note of this. Girls use words all the time that don't make sense to us to describe things. And I don't know if it's a difference between the female and the male perspective, or if it's just a difference in the way we register stuff. I don't know what's going on, but whatever we do, Logan, we never laugh at what the girls say about stuff, because when we laugh, they think we're... You girls want to finish the sentence? Being critical, making fun of them, and we're not. Are we, Logan? We're not being critical. We're not making fun. See, do you guys remember what prompted laughter? Remember this disequilibrium stuff? What you said threw me off balance, so I go ha 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 to regain my equilibrium. It has nothing to do with you as a person. Now, see, you girls have studied this stuff just like Logan has, and just like I have. So when you hear me laughing, don't you know it has nothing to do with you? I'm just regaining my equilibrium. You can say what you want about that equilibrium stuff and that disequilibrium. All I know is that when you laugh, when I said something, I take it personal. Oh boy. So I need to be careful. Yeah, but you'll still make mistakes. So we just learn to apologize. So what do we say when the girls take offense and they're hurt by what we say, Logan? We say,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We don't know what we did, and we don't know why we're sorry, but we are. And the girls go, that's exactly right. You guys just don't get it. And again, it just has to do with, I think, the way it's the gender differences in how we handle words and even how we process these words and how we think about stuff. A higher level of metalinguistic awareness is related to higher reading ability in school. So the more you understand this concept of metalinguistics, of thinking about language, that certain words that are funny to me would be offensive to somebody else, and that words have multiple meanings, and this is one, I don't know where I encountered this, somewhere in life early on, but it's really stuck with me. And that is that words are highly emotional. Not all words are highly emotional, but probably all words can become highly emotional to somebody somewhere. So I just need to be aware of the fact that sometimes a word I can use can be registered as a highly emotional word in somebody else's mind. Okay, I grew up on a farm in Oklahoma where we raised wheat. But we never owned the farm. The man who owned the farm was a medical doctor in town, so every year 1/3 of our wheat crop was given to him to pay for the rent for using his farmland. Does anyone know what category what label we were given that would be an emotional label to my father and to us as a family?
A sharecropper?
That's exactly right, Lydia. In the book, they're called sharecroppers. And why are they called sharecroppers? Because we got a share of the crop for harvesting it from the guy's land who owned it. No, we gave him a share of the crop. We kept most of it, and we gave him a share of the crop because he owned the land. But if it wasn't for us, Lydia, he couldn't have raised wheat on this farm in a million years. He wasn't smart enough to do that. He was a medical doctor who had all kinds of medical expertise, but he knew nothing about farming. So guess who's the sharecropper? He is. I'm the farmer, and the doctor who owns the land is the sharecropper. Now, you understand why that word just has an emotional connotation to it. But don't you see it in social studies books all the time? Which tells me that the people who write these books aren't even aware. And my dad, who was a college graduate, but he chose to spend his life as a farmer because he loved growing things and watching wheat grow. Here's what he would say. He said, there's a lot of highly intelligent people in the world who are dumber than stumps. Now, does anyone know what dumber than a stump means?
We're really dumb.
What?
Stumps aren't very intelligent.
That's, and I never knew exactly what it meant. All I knew is that it was an insult to intelligent people.
Yeah.
But see, there again, that's an emotional phrase. So are you in socioeconomic class, are you upper class, middle class, or lower class? Now, which one of those words has a strong emotional overtone?
Lower.
Lower class. I mean, okay, let's find some other words that are less emotional to label them. Let's see. Upper class would be extremely wealthy. Middle class would be
Average.
white collar workers. And then here's a white collar worker who gets paid more money than what kind of collar worker?
Blue collar.
A blue collar worker. Do you see the difference? Does anyone mind being called a blue collar worker? I know some blue collar workers who go around making jokes at lunch about white collar workers who are upstairs ruling things and couldn't make the factory run if they wanted to. And I know white collar workers who get together for lunch and talk about the blue collar workers, and it's like they wouldn't know what to do if we didn't tell them every day. And then I know wealthy people who it's like, well, the question isn't, are you a wealthy person? The question is, did you earn your wealth or did you inherit it? And if you had to earn your wealth, then where does that put you in socioeconomic ranking by the people who inherited their wealth? And the inherited wealth people see themselves as ranked higher than the working wealthy people. And in my mind, because I come from a working class family, the guy who worked to be wealthy is someone to be admired or patted on the back. The guy who inherited it, what I want to know is, are you smart enough to do anything with it, or are you going to waste it? You understand? I'm kind of putting the guy who inherited the wealth clear over here lower than the blue collar guy. And part of what you want to do in life is start to learn what kind of emotions people attach to the words they're using. And I just learned something last night from listening to one of the news commentators after the president gave the State of the Union speech. And here's what this guy said. I had never heard this before, but this was a prominent commentator in the media, and he said, when the president called us Democrats, he insulted us. So if you're a member of the Democratic Party and I call you a Democrat, you're insulted? And I'm going, I didn't know that. Brand new information. So now I kind of want to go to the internet and check it out and see what's going on and say, whoa, is there a new emotional word out there? And it seems to change with time as to what kind of words are highly emotionally charged. And sometimes I think what happens is when words become highly emotionally charged, then we make a mistake. If in our context the word becomes highly emotionally charged, that doesn't necessarily mean it had the same highly emotional charge to it in another context, in another culture, in another part of the world, or in another time frame. So be careful about maybe thinking that the way words are registered emotively today is the way they've always been registered. So not only can a single word have multiple meanings, it can also have multiple emotional connotations. Page 387 talks about personal narratives, stories about personal experiences that inform others about the self and provide increased self-understanding. See, just stopping and thinking about some of those episodes from your 7 to 11-year-old time frame. When you do this meta-linguistic thing, or metacognition thing, you start asking yourself, why is it that episode stands out in my mind rather than some others? And it helps you start to understand yourself about how you perceive yourself, or just in light of how you remember what happened and how you put your story together about your own growth and development. Nina said to me one time, when she would tell episodes from her childhood, and when we were first married, and I would tell an episode from my childhood, and she said, Tom, she said, you seem to just remember bad stuff. I'm going, really? She goes, yeah. And she said, I said, oh, I didn't think of it as being bad stuff. She said, well, they were painful experiences. And I'm going, yeah, but so, pain's a part of life. In fact, what do they say on the wide world of sports? Or they used to say it anyway.
No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. The agony of defeat. Just like, hey, pain's just part of it. That's how you gain and grow in life. And she said, but most of my memories are just positive, fun kinds of memories. And I said, yeah, I guess that's just the way we're wired. That's just how we remember things. And that has a lot to do with how we understand ourselves. And so can you see where my wife would carry this little frame around? If you can't say something nice about people, you know how to finish that sentence?
Don't say anything at all.
Don't say anything at all. And I would say, hey, if the truth hurts, you just got to deal with it. Page 392 and 393 talks about developing reading skills. 2 factors that best predict success in early reading are familiarity with the letters of the alphabet and phonemic awareness. Do you know your phonemes? What sounds does the letter A make? Okay, think of words you say that have an A in them. Say a word with the letter A in it.
Apple.
Apple. So, what sound did the A make? Ah, ah, ah. Say car. Car. What sound did the letter A make? Ah, you understand? That's phonemic awareness, is being aware of what sounds the various letters make. Because watch what happens. If you develop phonemic awareness, in other words, when you hear people talking, if you know what sounds go with what letters, can you see how when you're reading a book and you see those letters, you can almost hear what's being said in the book? Because you have this phonemic awareness. That, in fact, sometimes this helps. When you're reading a book, if you read it out loud so that you're not only looking at those words, but you're hearing yourself say those words, sometimes a little, especially a 7 to 11-year-old, they will read something and they won't know what the word means. They'll look at the word and they won't recognize the word, but when they say it out loud and they hear it, they remember hearing that word and now they know what it means. And that's this phonemic awareness thing, where you associate printed letters with the sounds that go with them. So it's good for kids to be, in other words, when I'm reading to a little kid, if I want to help improve their reading ability, when I'm reading to a little kid, it's good to hold them on my lap and have both of us look at the book and then have them run their finger along the letters while I read out loud what the book is saying. So they're getting the visual as well as the auditory reinforcement for what's going on as we read this story. And of course, have any of you ever read a story to a little kid? You read the whole little kid's book, and the intellectual level is just about there. And then what do they say when they're finished? Read it again. You go, okay, and you read it again, and they do the same thing all over again, and what do they say when you're finished? Read it again. And I'm sitting there thinking, how many times am I going to read this thing? Now, see, I'm getting tired of it because I almost have the story memorized. But here's this little child who's just forming all this stuff in their head. And it seems to me like if we're really aware of what's going on in their human growth and development, that we will just sit there and read that same book over and over and over and over again until they get it fixed in their mind to the point to where they're ready to go on with another book. And if you ever try that, it'll wear you out. Just keep say, I'm going to read this thing until till they don't say read it again. And eventually they'll reach a place to where they'll get up, go put the book down and get another one. Because in their minds, they're finished with that book. They've got all they're going to get from that book, so now they're ready for another one. So some people would say, put yourself in the place of the little kid in terms of what's going on, but really just be aware of how little kids grow and develop in terms of their cognitive abilities, and that'll help you be a little more patient with them when you're helping them develop their reading skills. Did I skip math skills on page 389? How could I skip math skills and jump to reading skills? When math is my favorite subject. So what do you do with math skills? What do you teach little kids to do? Teach them how to count. So let's just count things. And once little kids learn how to count, they want to count almost everything because they want to practice. So let's just start counting. And then we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And what's after 10? 11. Then 12. Then
13.
Now, see, and okay, after 13, then what? 14, then 15, then 16. Wait a minute, I see a pattern here. Shouldn't it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 1 teen, and then 2 teen, and then 3 teen, and then 14? Wouldn't that make more sense? And then 5 teen? But the English language, the English language is just all messed up. So be aware of this little kid's going on, and then so you get to 19, and then you go 20. And then you go what? 21, 22. Oh, we're back up to starting over. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. And then what? 30. And then we go through the whole, and see, can you see where once a little kid figures that out, then it's like, whoa, I can just keep going. Then they'll often say, what happens after you get to 100? Then you go what? 101, 102, and you go all the way up to 199, and then you go 200. And it just keeps going. And once they start to see this pattern, they really don't have to memorize all these math facts. Probably the only ones you have to memorize are the names of the numerals 1 through 20. Because after that, it's just a pattern where it keeps going. Do all of you like math word problems? In all of my years of teaching math, every time I would introduce math word problems to students, it was like, oh no, I hate story problems. So I did something with some young children one time, just to see what would happen. I took all the story problems from the book and I typed them out on paper. But you know how in the book it talks about a little girl went to the store and she bought some stuff at the store. Well, I would take my story problems and say, Haley went to the store to buy some groceries. And Haley bought this and this and this and this. And then the second problem was Logan was riding his bicycle, and the bicycle has a tire that has a circumference of 24 inches. And he rode his bicycle with a little ribbon on the tire, and the tire went around 50 times. How far did he ride his bicycle? How far did Logan ride his bicycle? And all of a sudden, when I started doing this, Anna earned some money from working and decided to give 10% of it as an offering in church. The kids all of a sudden took an interest in the story problems. Why would they do that?
Because they're relatable.
Lydia decides to bake a cake, and so I do all this recipe stuff, and it's like, well, how come when it said a little girl decided to bake a cake, nobody's interested, and as soon as Lydia's name's in there, and I didn't change the context, I didn't change the problem, I just put students' names in the problem, and all of a sudden it made the problem relatable. Isn't that funny how that works? Just to see your name, you don't have to invent a whole new problem. You just put their name in the problem. And of course, I did that for the whole math worksheet. And Micah says, Mr. Bonine, how come you didn't put my name in any problems? And I go, Micah, when you start paying attention in class and doing what I want you to do and stop distracting, then I'll put your name in a problem. And guess what happens? Just like that, Micah straightens up and starts goofing off in math class. And I'm going, whoa, this sticking a name in a problem is a powerful kind of tool. So make a note of that. Make a note of that. If you're working with some little kids and they just don't like the math problems, say, I think I can make these problems more interesting. And then what you do is you just take the problems right out of the book, type them up on a sheet of paper, and just put that person's name in and their sibling's name and their parents' names and whatever, and see where it takes them. Okay, let's talk about, okay, page 393, back to reading. With repetition, children automatize their word recognition, which makes it easier for them to read, and thus they tend to read more. In other words, the more they read, the more they develop reading expertise, and the more, just like we talked about automaticity, that keyboarding thing, when you're sitting there typing something on your tablet or on your computer, and you're looking at something in a book and typing it, you're not thinking about which keys your fingers are hitting because they're doing it automatically. That's what starts to happen with reading. I mean, at first, they put their finger on each word, and then pretty soon, do any of you read where you can put your finger like you can go bang, 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 and take a sentence and hit it in two places and kind of get the whole drift of 4 or 5 words stuck together? Or have you taken a speed reading course where you can just put your finger in the middle of the page and just go down like that? And it's hard work, but if you practice it long enough, you can absorb, so to speak, what's being said on the whole page without sounding out each of the words on the page. Because this practice just makes for automaticity. Page 394 and 395 talk about developing their writing skills. So, have all of you taken a penmanship course where you've learned how to make the letters? If you haven't had a penmanship course, you can buy little penmanship books and work on it. When I taught accounting in high school, I mean, my penmanship is, my personal everyday penmanship is atrocious. And when students are in my math class and they see my penmanship, they'll see how atrocious it can be. And so when I taught accounting, I said, now, in accounting, it's a very technical kind of thing. And when you see this picture of a page, when you're setting up your accounting pages, this is the way you need to write your headings. Not with sloppy penmanship, but with this almost flawless script penmanship. And they all laughed. And so I went to the board and I said, like this. And I picked up a marker and I started in cursive writing like accounting exactly the way it looked in the book. And they go, whoa. I said, I can do this. It just takes longer and I have to go slower. And then I passed out a little penmanship page for them to practice making their letters and said, and you can do it too. And you will if you're going to make an A in this accounting class. So basically, people just need some instruction and some pictures of how to make their letters properly, if that's the word to use, and then developing the writing skills. But anymore you go, no, if I want script, I just hit the button and change it from whatever letters I'm using, because keyboarding does so much for you anymore that you don't have to do much with penmanship. It says both reading and writing show similar developmental progressions. So basically, we're reading and like one word at a time, and so we're writing with one letter at a time. A, B, C, and then after a while, the more you practice good penmanship, the more you can just make the words without it. Most of us end up developing our own personal penmanship that is perfectly clear to us, but it's not always clear to other people. Actually, my penmanship is so bad that I can be sitting somewhere listening to a lecture and writing notes, and then later I can read my notes and can't read them because my penmanship is that bad. That's what's nice about a tablet, isn't it? Because you can just sit there and type what you're listening to, and you can type as fast as they can talk, and so you can get everything they're saying, and it's going to be easier to read later on. Strong writers become skilled at reviewing their own material from the reader's perspective, reading it aloud. Whenever you write something, one of the best things you can do is take what you've written and read it out loud and listen to what you just said and see how it sounds. And the end result is you'll revise your work, and then you'll just constantly keep revising it. Okay, now we've talked about math skills, reading skills, writing skills. Can you think of any other skills that 7 to 11-year-olds ought to be working on developing besides math, reading, and writing? What about speaking skills? What is it we said, Logan? If you can't say something kind,
say nothing at all.
Don't say anything at all. So it seems like we ought to be teaching kids how to speak to one another in a kind fashion, in a wholesome fashion, in a sensitive fashion. Do any of you know the magic words? You're sitting at the table and you say, I want some more potatoes. And I say to my wife, did you hear a noise? And she goes, I heard something, but I wasn't sure exactly what they were saying. And then I hear this little girl say, may I please have some more potatoes? Oh, yes, you may. And we give her some potatoes because we're teaching her, what are the magic words?
Please and thank you.
May I, please, and thank you. I mean, shouldn't the 7 to 11-year-olds be taught that? Maybe that's why. Could this be what's going on in Washington? That these adults aren't civil with each other because when they were 7 to 11, their parents didn't teach them how to say, may I, please, and thank you, and be kind to one another in your speech? Or had they just decided as you get older, you just get ugly in the way you talk to each other? I think, personally, when I look at the way people talk about each other, and when I look at the way people talk to each other on television, I'm thinking that this is not a healthy thing for 7 to 11-year-olds to be listening to. You understand why? It's not teaching them how to talk to one another in what I was taught was a civil way of talking to each other. I mean, can you disagree with somebody and still be polite about it? And for some reason, maybe it's because we're not making enough of an emphasis on teaching people how to develop their speaking skills, how to take turns, how to listen to each other, how to choose the right words. I have an idea. Oh, when I came from math today, there were people in the room playing ping pong. Is that what it's called? Or is it called table tennis?
Both.
It's both?
Yep.
Why is it called ping pong?
That's what it sounds.
Isn't that amazing? Like, this to me is so interesting about words. Why do we call table tennis? I mean, I know why it's called table tennis, because it's tennis on a table, but why do we call it ping pong? Because it's like ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. So a lot of things, like, what's the noise a dog makes?
Woof.
Woof. And what's another word for the noise a dog makes? And isn't that, I mean, woof, 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 you know? So what's another word we use for the noise a dog makes?
Bark.
Bark.
Bark, 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 bark. You understand how we take these sounds and we give labels to them that kind of sound like the sound? And I suggested, when I came from math over to this class, I said, whoa, wouldn't this be a great day to, or I said, wow, how to get some exercise playing table tennis or playing ping pong. But think how much more exercise we'd get if we went outside to the big tennis courts and played outdoor tennis. Hey, I'll go home and get some rackets and some tennis balls and come back and we can go play outdoor tennis. What do you think of that?
It's way too cold.
Way too cold. Now, in my head, a little phrase just popped up. That's a dumb idea. Did anybody else have that phrase pop up on your little screen? Okay, see, I wasn't taught good speaking skills when I was younger. If somebody had a dumb idea, no, if it was too cold to go outside and play outdoor tennis, then Logan is nice enough to say, I think it's too cold for that. Where I'm just rude enough to say, that's a dumb idea. Somehow, we need to teach 7 to 11-year-olds how to talk to each other about stuff. I think it'd be a little too cold for that. What a kind way to say it. What did some of the rest of you think about that suggestion? I thought it was a dumb idea. Did anyone else think it was a dumb idea? I'm the only one that wasn't taught to be civil in the way I talk about things. Okay, what are some of the phrases that popped in your head?
I thought it sounded kind of fun.
What?
I thought it sounded kind of fun.
You think it'd be fun to go out in this weather and play tennis?
I think table tennis is more fun than real tennis. So
I think table tennis is more fun than real tennis. Now, see, when Lydia says, I think it'd be kind of fun to go out there, I go, okay, I'll go get some rackets and bring them back. And does anybody else want to participate in Lydia's fun? Hannah doesn't. Anybody else want to? Are we going to find anybody on this campus who wants to go out there and play tennis with Lydia?
Probably.
Maybe.
And so I give them the tennis rackets and I give them the balls and I sit in the car and Logan comes by and he goes, what's going on? And I go, are those people nuts or what? I mean, do you understand? I just grew up. I grew up. I'm assuming I learned to talk this way. No, I don't think anybody taught me to talk this way. I was just left to myself and invented my own way of describing what people are doing. So I say, that's a dumb idea. And those people are nuts. I mean, it's just like, no, Tom. You need to work on learning how to be a better speaker. How to use more appropriate... Okay, now watch this. And this is what prompted me to do some of this. How to use less emotionally charged words when you talk about stuff. Because highly emotionally charged words tend to turn people away or turn them off. So if you've already been taught how to speak properly to other people about this stuff, how to, think about some of the things the Bible says about it. What kind of answer turns away wrath?
Gentle.
A dose of their own medicine. No! What?
Gentle.
A soft answer, a gentle answer turns away wrath. Grievous words do what? Stir up anger. I mean, if you really want to work on improving your speaking skills, just get a piece of paper and say, what does the Bible say about how I should talk to other people? And then just start going through the Bible, put the paper in there and reading through the Bible. And then every time you find something that sounds like a good idea, write it on your paper. And when you're finished reading all the way through the Bible, you will have a little instruction sheet that will radically improve your ability to communicate or to speak, to talk to other people. It's amazing what can happen. And I really think probably a lot of 7 to 11-year-olds, if we would help them get this right early in life, it would serve them well for a long time. And probably, if you go through the Bible and get all that stuff and collect it together, it wouldn't hurt to type up a copy of it and send it to all the people in Washington and say, just a few suggestions on how you could better communicate with one another. Okay. Well, we'll see you on Friday and look at chapter 12.